Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to take a big pile of information and really dig out the most important bits of knowledge and insight just for you.
That's the plan.
And today, well, we're diving into some pretty fascinating online chatter, some reports swirling around some, frankly, sensational
Yeah,
claims.
sensational is a good word for it. So our goal today really is to map out two different but sort of linked stories that got a lot of buzz online using the material you sent over.
Right.
We're going to lay out the specific claims, the connections people were drawing, just so you can get a handle on what these ideas actually are.
Exactly. We've got this audio discussion that digs into these claims, and it mentions sources like the Pentagon and Japanese MI sources,
Right.
and also pulls from websites like Tyranny.org and Angry Patriot, places often known for pretty strong, sometimes unverified political takes.
Definitely.
So yeah, settle in. This deep dive is really about mapping out what's being said out there.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's unpack this first one. The initial claim that really jumped out, the one that even made the original speaker pause and ask, like, this has to be fake, right?
Uh-huh.
It was about the arrest, the supposed arrest of a former president.
Yeah, and the details were, well, very specific. The claim was the possible arrest of former President Obama
Right.
by U.S. military police, no less. And the sources cited the Pentagon and Japanese MI military intelligence.
Military intelligence, okay.
And the report said he was actually being held in Japan.
In Japan, wow, okay. And the why behind this alleged arrest, that was pretty huge too, wasn't it? Connected to, like, a massive geopolitical thing.
Absolutely. It wasn't just a standalone event in this narrative. It was tied directly to the, quote, collapse of the post-war order.
The whole post-war order.
Yeah. And specifically, they said it happened because, quote, David Rockefeller and his imperial proxy are out of the picture.
Yeah.
Invoking these names often linked to big, shadowy global power ideas.
Okay, right, I see.
And on top of that, the story alleged that Obama's so-called Black House, or anti-Trump headquarters, was also set on fire.
So a lot packed in there.
A lot. It's really interesting how the narrative jumps from one supposed event, the arrest, to explaining this massive global shift. That's pretty typical of these kinds of grand conspiracy frameworks, trying to find one single cause for really complex world events.
Yeah, connecting disparate dots. But the claims about the arrest itself, they didn't end just there, did they? What else did the sources allege happened?
No, it kept going. The sources, or at least how they were relayed, claimed that once he was arrested, Obama immediately began naming his bosses in the drug-dealing faction of the CIA.
Drug-dealing? Is that...
Yeah, it's an unusual word. The context suggests it might refer to drug trafficking or maybe a specific faction within the CIA allegedly involved in it. It's not standard terminology.
Okay, so he names names.
Right, and that supposedly led to a whole chain reaction. Specifically, the impounding of Afghan heroin and North Korean amphetamines, another odd term. Yeah, likely meant to be amphetamines or some kind of synthetic drug. This seizure supposedly happened at Argyle International Airport down in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Okay, so drugs seized in the Caribbean.
And the narrative claims the money from that specific drug flight was earmarked to finance the operations of Daesh, which is, ISIS.
ISIS financing.
Well, wow.
Okay. And they even threw in a mention of a previous event, supposedly, the capture of an Obama-linked ship containing 4.2 tons of cocaine.
So, stringing together multiple alleged incidents?
Exactly. The sort of overall takeaway being presented was basically, Obama has been arrested in connection to a shadow government and has been sent off to Japan. Just laid out like that.
That is quite a narrative. Okay, so that's one whole set of claims. But then the discussion you looked at, it shifted gears a bit, right, to another kind of related story about this shadow government idea.
Yeah, exactly. It pivots, but it stays on that theme.
Yeah.
Another online source, specifically cited as Tyranny.org and Angry Patriot, came at it from a slightly different angle.
Okay. The headline they apparently ran was, Obama shadow government operative just arrested. It's finally happening.
It's finally happening. Okay.
So this story argued that even though Obama wasn't in the White House anymore, he, quote, still has operators trying to undermine Trump's presidency.
Right. So this wasn't claiming Obama himself was arrested again, but someone working for him. A, quote, key member of his little army. Was that the phrase?
That was the phrasing used, yeah. And the focus here was the actual confirmed arrest of a State Department employee named Candy Claiborne, sometimes spelled Candace Claiborne.
Okay, Candy Claiborne. And this was a real arrest.
Yes, this part is based on a real event. The Department of Justice did announce her arrest. The charges were real, too. Obstructing an official proceeding and making false statements to the FBI.
Okay, so a real arrest, but then woven into this larger shadow government narrative. How did the sources connect those dots?
Well, they dug into her background. Pointed out she first joined the State Department way back in 1999 under President Bill Clinton. And she had several overseas postings, specifically in the Middle East and China. And the source immediately highlighted that these were, quote, countries who have funded money to the Clinton Foundation during the now infamous pay-to-play scandal.
Ah, okay. Drawing that connection to the Clinton Foundation controversies.
Right. Linking her postings to countries involved in those allegations.
And this arrest, Claiborne's arrest, was then used to explain what? Some alleged backroom deals during the campaign.
That's exactly where the speculation went. The narrative suggested that Hillary Clinton knew Claiborne was in place.
Knew she was compromised, or?
Knew she was essentially a potential problem or liability, maybe even this alleged traitor. And this knowledge supposedly explained that urgent meeting Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General at the time, had with Bill Clinton on the airport tarmac.
The tarmac meeting, right. That got a lot of attention.
A huge amount. And the speculation here was that Lynch also knew about the traitor, meaning Claiborne. And that Bill Clinton's message to Lynch on that tarmac was basically, you need to drop the investigation into Hillary's emails to make sure Claiborne doesn't get exposed.
Wow. So connecting the email investigation, the tarmac meeting, and this State Department employee's later arrest into one big alleged cover-up.
Pretty much, yeah. It's quite something how these narratives weave together different events, often separated by time, into a single cause and effect chain.
And this even supposedly explained the Obama's relationship with Hillary Clinton during the campaign. How so?
Well, according to this source, yeah. It was used to explain why Michelle and Barack Obama seemed to suddenly get behind Hillary's campaign, the quick turnaround in attitude, as the source put it.
The idea being they didn't actually like the Clintons.
The claim was they, quote, despised the Clintons, but were essentially forced to back her. Maybe meant back her, not hack her, but the source said hack.
Interesting phrasing.
Yeah, forced to back her to protect their own interests.
Yeah.
The fear supposedly being that if Trump won the election,
then Claiborne would be exposed.
Exactly. That one of their top spies, meaning Claiborne operating within the government, would be outed.
Okay. And then, according to this narrative, what happened? Trump did win.
Right. Trump won, and as the source puts it, miraculously. A woman that has been operating within our government for the enemy for almost 2 decades has been outed.
Framing her arrest as a direct consequence of the election outcome.
Precisely. And then the speculation continued, suggesting Claiborne would probably cut a deal.
Right.
And, quote, spill the beans about the corrupt administrations, both of Clinton and Obama.
So her arrest was framed as this huge win, a major coup for the Trump administration.
That's the language they use, yes, a major coup.
Well,
wow.
So that's another incredibly detailed narrative connecting a lot of different threads. Now, there was one more piece in the source material, right? Something about a high-profile official at the time.
That's right. It wasn't just about these alleged operatives. The discussion also included a really strong call, a demand, for the firing of FBI Director James Comey.
Comey. Okay, and the reasons given in the source.
They were pretty blunt. The claim was he had absolutely no integrity, that he had directly facilitated the criminal acts of numerous high-ranking officials with the Obama administration.
Strong words.
Very. And also that he was personally responsible for letting Hillary Clinton walk free regarding the email investigation. Plus accusations that he was, quote, continually undermining the Trump administration and had lied to Congress and the American public. So a whole list of grievances.
And did the source suggest who should replace him?
It did, yeah. They floated Congressman Trey Gowdy.
Gowdy.
But then there was this interesting little side note, almost an aside, mentioning that Gowdy himself had voted for the censorship that's going on right now on YouTube. Kind of an odd detail to include right there.
Huh. Yeah, that is a bit of a curveball. So, demands for Comey's firing, suggestions for replacement. How did the source sort of wrap all this up?
It kind of ended on this general feeling, this sense that, quote, there is something shaking, feeling that big things were happening or about to happen behind the scenes.
Something shaking. Got it. Okay. Well, that really was a deep dive. We've covered these two really distinct, but like you said, interconnected narratives from the sources you analyzed.
Yeah.
These incredibly sensational claims about a former president supposedly arrested in Japan.
Hmm.
And then the separate, detailed conspiracy about a, quote, shadow government operative, Candy Claiborne, linking her arrest to the Clintons, the Obamas, the election, everything.
It really shows how these intricate webs get woven online, doesn't it? Taking different events, different people, sometimes real facts like an arrest, sometimes completely unverified claims,
Right.
and connecting them all into what feels like a coherent story, even if it lacks, solid proof across the board. We've really just tried to lay out what these sources were claiming, how they built those stories.
Exactly. Giving you, the listener, a clearer picture of the claims themselves and, maybe more importantly, how they're constructed.
Yeah.
So maybe the thought to leave you with is this. We live in this age of just constant information, right? And these narratives that seem to connect everything pop up so fast.
Cool there.
So how do you personally approach that? When you encounter these kinds of really complex, really far-reaching claims online, what's your process for trying to figure them out, for interpreting them? Something to think about.